There are romantic dramas, and then there are films that quietly stay with you long after the credits roll. Love and Other Drugs is one of those films. Released in 2010 and directed by Edward Zwick, this movie blends romance, comedy, and real emotional weight in a way that is often overlooked. Starring Jake Gyllenhaal and Anne Hathaway, it tells the story of two people brought together under unusual circumstances, one chasing success and the other facing a life-altering illness. And while it might look like just another romantic comedy on the surface, it's actually something much deeper. In this review, we're diving into why Love and Other Drugs is such an underrated gem and why it deserves a lot more recognition. The film is based on the non-fiction book Hard Sell: The Evolution of Viagra Salesman by Jamie Reddy. But interestingly, the film takes major creative liberties. The original book doesn't even include the central love story. It's more about the pharmaceutical industry. Instead, the film uses the backdrop to tell something far more personal. Set in the 1990s, the story follows Jamie Randall, played here by Jake Gyllenhaal, a charming but reckless pharmaceutical sales rep working for Pfizer. This is during the rise of Viagra, a drug that completely changed the industry. Jamie is ambitious, persuasive, and used to getting what he wants, until he meets Maggie Murdoch. Maggie is played by Anne Hathaway, and she is fiercely independent, emotionally guarded, and living with early onset Parkinson's disease. What begins as a casual physical relationship quickly evolves into something much more complicated. Now let's talk about the performances, because this is where this film truly shines. Jake Gyllenhaal delivers one of his most charismatic roles. Jamie is flawed, selfish, and driven by ego at the start, but as the story progresses, you see him slowly unravel and grow. It's not a dramatic transformation, it's subtle, human, and believable. But the real standout here has to be Anne Hathaway. This is one of her most underrated performances. Yes, the role is physically demanding and very exposed, literally, but what makes it powerful is the emotional depth she brings to Maggie. She's not written as a tragic character. She's strong, sarcastic, and fiercely independent. She refuses to be defined by her illness. And that's what makes her performance so compelling. To prepare for the role, Hathaway even spent time with people living with Parkinson's, including actress Lucy Rosas, who actually appears in the film. She also lost weight intentionally, not for appearance, but because many Parkinson's patients experience weight loss early on. It's that level of detail and commitment that elevates her performance. Now, the real heart of this film is the chemistry between Gyllenhaal and Hathaway, and it's electric. This wasn't their first time working together. They previously starred in Brokeback Mountain, but here the dynamic is completely different. The relationship starts off very physical and very casual, but over time it becomes something much more deeper. What makes the film stand out is how raw and honest the relationship feels. It doesn't follow the typical romantic formula. There's no perfect happily ever after handed to you. Instead, it explores real fears. The fear of commitment, fear of vulnerability, and most importantly, the fear of loss. Maggie pushes Jamie away, not because she doesn't love him, but because she's afraid of what her condition will do to him. And Jamie, for the first time in his life, has to decide whether love is worth the pain that might come with it. It's messy, it's complicated, but that's what makes this film so authentic and real. Jamie has to look beyond himself and his selfish needs and wants, and put Maggie's own well-being ahead of his own. That's something I've really appreciated about the film, is that you grow with these characters. You go on a journey with them, and you see their love unfold, slowly but surely. Beyond the romance, the film explores some surprisingly deep themes. First, there's the critique of the pharmaceutical industry. Jamie's job is to sell drugs, not necessarily to help people, but to outcompete rivals. The film subtly shows how medicine becomes commercialized, especially with the rise of the blockbuster drugs like Viagra, which of course was an absolute game changer in the industry back in the 1990s. There's even a recurring sense of product placement throughout the film, with real drug names being constantly mentioned, but this is done on purpose, to make a point. Interestingly, director Edward Zwick denied needing approval for those references, which adds a layer of authenticity to the film. But more importantly, the film is about human connection. It asks a simple but powerful question: can you truly love someone knowing they might suffer, and that you might suffer alongside them? Can you give up your own quality of life in order to put someone else's needs ahead of your own? Maggie's illness isn't just a plot device, it's central to the emotional core of the very story that you're watching. There's a particularly powerful sequence where Jamie attends a Parkinson support convention with Maggie. This scene includes real people living with the disease, which adds an almost documentary-like realism to the film. It grounds the movie into something very real and very human. Some trivia notes. The film was primarily shot in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, chosen for its medical history and atmosphere. Various locations around the city doubled for different settings, even standing in for Chicago at times. One interesting behind-the-scenes detail was that to make the actors more comfortable during an intimate scene, director Edward Zwick actually joined them, yes, literally in bed, for a group shot, which was later used for the film's poster. Zwick, though, would be digitally removed from the poster, so as just to leave the main stars, Gyllenhaal and Hathaway, in the picture. And when it comes to those scenes, a lot of improvisation was encouraged, but fully clothed during rehearsals. Jake Gyllenhaal even joked in interviews that one of the hardest parts of his career was pretending to be not attracted to Anne Hathaway. Anne Hathaway took a very practical approach to filming the sex scenes, eventually choosing to stay in character between takes rather than constantly resetting, which actually helped her speed up the production. In preparing for the film, Hathaway credits the work of Kate Winslet and Penelope Cruz, two actresses whose work she returned to a lot in preparation. Hathaway said they'd both done nudity with tremendous amount of sensitivity and dignity. Like Gyllenhaal, Hathaway had a final cut of those scenes, using it to cut 5 seconds where she thought the camera lingered a little bit too long on her body. Hathaway said that she did not believe her nudity in the film would put off socially conservative people who would otherwise see the film, saying just because nudity is such a contentious issue in America, people believe that they automatically alienate the conservative parts of America by having nudity. But I give the American public more credit than that. I think people are curious and people love love stories. I think people might find it and like it, even though it is a little bit risky. In preparation for his role, Jake Gyllenhaal spent time with Jamie Reddy, the author of the book on which the film is based upon. The film is dedicated to the memory of Joel Clayburgh, who died before the film was released. Unfortunately, upon release, Love and Other Drugs received mixed reviews. It would go on to gross $105 million worldwide against a $30 million budget, so commercially it was a success. Both Gyllenhaal and Hathaway were nominated at the Golden Globe Awards, which speaks to the strength of their performances. But despite that, the film never quite reached the level of recognition I feel it deserved. Look, at its core, Love and Other Drugs is not just a romantic drama. It's a story about vulnerability, acceptance, and choosing love, even when it's difficult to do so. It may not be groundbreaking in structure, but emotionally it does hit hard. But what really stands out, though, is the performances from the two main leads. Jake Gyllenhaal and Anne Hathaway's chemistry is undeniable, and the story feels deeply human. This is what I term a human interest story. It's real, cathartic, and feels genuinely lived in. The supporting cast here are also excellent, with the likes of Hank Azaria, Oliver Platt, and Josh Gad, just to name a few, that add credence, comedic timing, but also some genuine heart to what really is a beautifully made film. For me, this is a film that's easy to revisit, and one that reveals much more each time you watch it. Love and Other Drugs gets a 9 out of 10. So what did you think of Love and Other Drugs? Please let me know down in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dive reviews.